Kim Olson, retired from the Air Force. She's a pilot, and now that she is retired, she has a nonprofit group called Grace After Fire that helps women adjust after their military life. Great job there. And Lieutenant Colonel Kim Olson joins us right now. Colonel, thanks, first of all, for the service in our military, for leading our country through rough times, and for being there for all of us. Kim, thanks a lot.
Well, thanks for having me on the show today, and good morning to both of you.
All right, now, we'll get right to it. Women on the front lines. There are so many questions, so many ways to go on this, but can a woman handle combat, arm in arm, being shot at, shooting back, along with the men on the front line?
Well, I would just tell you and your listeners out there that they've been doing it for about the last 10 years. If you deploy into places like Iraq and Afghanistan, because the battle space has changed so much that once you're in country, you're in combat.
And I've got to be honest with you here. You caught me by surprise. Women have been on front lines for 10 years, you say?
Combat knows no gender, and so if you're on a convoy and you're moving supplies or petroleum and an improvised explosive device comes off the side of the road,
right,
you're in combat.
Yes, you are.
We have women who've lost their lives because of enemy fire. We have women, 600 Purple Hearts have been awarded, and that's awarded for bravery under direct enemy fire. So because the battle space has changed so much, there just aren't any places you can go if you're in country somewhere and be safe.
So what does today's announcement from Leon Panetta actually do? What is the difference going to be from what you say has been happening all along to what they say is going to start happening?
Kelly, that's a great question, and I think what the policy does is it now aligns the reality of what's going on in our wars with policies that the DOD is about to put out. That's number one. Number two, it allows our females to get the training that they need so that if they come under harms or they come under enemy fire, that they know exactly what to do, and they are an integral part of that unit of both men and women. And number three, it allows women now to progress among the ranks and join the executive leadership teams within the military. And you and I both know that it's good to have women sitting around the table, whether it's in a war room or in a boardroom.
Okay, let's start with this. Now, should women, by the way, we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel Kim Olson retired from our United States Air Force, a pilot in the U.S. Air Force. A woman, if this comes to pass, should women have to register for the draft system? Even though we don't have a draft, you still have to register.
That's a great question, and that's one of those things that the policymakers are going to have to stand up and see what they want to do. But I want to remind you all that only 1% of the nation serves in our military uniform today, and that is about 1 million people. And thank goodness that there is a generation of young men and women who will volunteer to go in harm's way on the behalf of the rest of us.
What do you say, just real quick, because some people in opposition to this are saying there are certain things that women just physically cannot do that men can do, and there's maybe a little fear that on the front lines you're going to be faced with that situation where physically you just cannot compete with the men. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think Secretary Panetta put out a good request from the services to say, hey, come back by, I think it's 2016, and tell us which kinds of roles we think that women absolutely should not belong in. And so the services within their own respective uniforms will decide what's the best place. And again, part of the military is making sure that you're the best combat-ready units you can be. And I have faith that they will do that in a very thoughtful way.
What about a woman's, just to get very personal with you here for just a moment, what about a woman's time of the month, if you know what I'm trying to say? Well, I know it sounds like I'm trying to be funny here, and I'm really not, because I know, I've been married 40 years, it can affect women in so many different ways, and usually it's I've never heard of a good way it affects a woman. Could that play into something bad for the military?
Well, I think we've had women in the military for, a number of decades, and myself being a pilot, being able to fly for nearly 20 years, I can assure you that there are ways of handling that. We have medicines today, and we have mechanisms that can can address that. So again, women, I flew up to my 6th month of pregnancy, and so there are just ways that we can work those things.
Yeah, and I want to repeat that. In all due respect, I asked that question, but I'm just kind of wondering if you're on the line and you're being shot at now. What about? And this could happen too because of what you said of women serving in the military, driving trucks and things like that. And what about a woman on the front line that's captured and goes through torture? And you know what I'm talking about here. Can a woman be ready for that mentally?
Well, I'm not sure anybody, a man or a woman, are ready, and I would argue that they would both suffer those kinds of horrors of war. So we do have training around that, and again, that's why I think it's so important that women who are subject to that type of stuff get the training that they need so they can have resiliency around it. We do have training camps for that specific subject that you're talking about. And again, what you'd like is women to get in leadership positions so that maybe war is not always the answer, that we find another way to work out our differences.
All right. Kim, thank you so much for your service. How long were you in the Air Force?
I was in the Air Force 25 years, and I retired as a colonel. So, yes, it was. I enjoyed serving my country, and it's a pleasure to serve outside of the uniform, too.
Do you still fly?
We have a little private airplane that we putz around in, yes.
Because your husband is a pilot, too. So, well, if I ever need a ride to Vegas, I'll call you. So, whatever.
You do that. You do that.
Lieutenant Colonel Kim Olson, retired from the Air Force. Thank you so much.